Legion 18 CSS.
Hello.
Over repo.
Yes. Well, well, maybe not. I mean, I did die and everything. Yes.
it. One small issue that I have with my game
Oh my god, for like a split second I played the video and then the voice for a moment sounded like yours and I got confused for like a brief second, for like a millisecond.
we're going to learn how to use the public access modifier in order to stop the player from being able to move after
So what
crashing.
are you working on today?
Apparently, I'm using the public access modifier
Legion
to
18
stop the
CSS.
player from
Sounds nothing
being
to
able
me.
to move after crashing. Quote, quotes. Sounds not very involved. I think, I actually don't know how he's gonna do this. It's interesting. How is the... I'm not sure how changing the privacy access modifier is gonna actually like change the behavior. But you know, this will be cool because normally I just make everything public, and I don't really see a use for making things private. So, this actually might be really interesting. And be like, oh, maybe private can be useful. We'll see.
Let's jump right into it. One small issue that I have with my game is that you can still control the player character even after losing. I'll start the game in order to show you what I mean. And if I bump my head on the floor, I can still control the player and be able to correct myself. So it doesn't really give us much feedback that the player crashed into the floor. It feels like I lightly touched it. What I'd like to happen instead is for the player to not be able to rotate the player character after crashing. We're also going to learn something new along the way, so let's open up the scripts folder, and we're going to need to open the crash detector and player controller scripts. Inside of VS Code, I have both of these scripts open. I have the crash detector, which is going to detect the crash, and then is going to tell the player controller to stop us from being able to control the character. We can do this by simply stopping the rotate player and boost player method.
Oh, I'm stupid. I know what he's gonna do. Because all the methods are already private by default. So he's just gonna change one of them to public, because if it's private, then you can't call it. Like, that's literally it. So there's nothing like super special about that. But yeah.
methods from running inside of update. Let's start by creating a variable to stop us from being able to control the character. We can do this by simply stopping the rotate player and boost player methods from running inside of update. Let's start by creating a variable to check whether we can control the player or not. I can do this simply by creating a new boolean.
Why did he call it a boobian? Like he said boobian, not bool.
Which I'll call can control player, and I'll set this to true by default. If you remember, a boolean is just a variable that's either true or false. Then, down in my update method, I'm just going to create a new if statement, checking if we can control player. If yes, then we're going to be able to rotate and boost the player, and if not, then it's not going to run these two methods. And you might have noticed that I didn't include equal true. And that's because if statements evaluate everything inside of them to be either true or false. So if I say if 10 is greater than 5, Then it's going to do some thinking and tell me if this statement was either true or false. Since we're using a boolean directly, we can just ignore the equal true part, since it's like we're saying if true or if false. Anyway, the only thing we need to do now is have the crash detector fetch our player controller inside of the scene, then change can control player to false once we crash. But I'd like you. The only thing we need to do now is have the crash detector fetch our player controller inside of the scene, then change can control player to false once we crash. But I'd like you to try that as your challenge. Inside of the crash detector script, I'd like you to get the player controller component by using the find first object by type method. This is a good opportunity to use it again, since we know there's only one player in the scene. Next, I'd like you to change can control player to false when the player crashes, and then see what happens. This is actually going to give you an error, so come back once you've tried it, and we'll see why it isn't quite as simple as we think. Go ahead and pause the video to take on this challenge, and I'll see you in just a bit. Alright, excellent job with that challenge. Let's go to our crash detector script, and we'll need to get our player controller from the scene. So I'll create a new variable of type player controller, and I'll name it player controller with a lowercase p. In order to get this player controller as soon as the game starts, we need to add our start method. So I'll create it with void start. And inside, I'll set the player controller to be equal to find first object by type, which
Centralicances, category och title, isrepo.
Oh, no. Hey, I didn't think you'd be around. Yes, I clearly all this text is a repo. Yes.
Centralicances, sleep is hard.
Oh my god, so relatable. It literally is just so difficult. It's like it's hard when you need it, when you want it, when you need it, and it's too easy when you're like trying to stay awake and you're tired.
Centralicances, you're just designing your new repo monitor texture.
Yes, yeah, exactly. That's definitely what's happening.
type are we looking for? Well, it's player controller. So I'll write player controller in between these arrows, and then parentheses semicolon. Now that we've gotten our player controller from the scene, let's go down to when the player crashes, and I'll create a new line over here. And I'm going to grab the player controller, and we want to set the can control player variable to false. So player controller dot can control player is equal to false. However, like I said earlier, this is actually going to cause an error. If we hover over this red squiggly line, it's going to say player controller dot can control player is inaccessible due to its protection level. The protection level is what decides what can and can't see a specific variable or method.
I'm still up is because he had to take a cover, added a couple shades of light to machine color.
Oh, yeah, wow. Lol.
In our player controller, by default, every single variable and every single method that we have can only be used inside of this class, the player controller method. In our player controller, by default, every single variable and every single method that we have can only be used inside of this class, the player controller. And anything outside of this class can't see or use any of these variables and methods. So let's say, for example, we want to use the boost player method outside of this script. If I write player controller.boost player, it's going to give us the exact same problem, telling us that the protection level is too high and therefore we're not allowed to use it. We can use access modifiers to change this, which is a word that we can add before creating a method or variable to say where it can be used. For example, to explicitly say that only this class can use a method, I can write private before I make it. So it's going to be private void boost player. Now everyone knows that boost player is only supposed to be used in this script. We can do the same for our variables. So for example, my move vector is not supposed to be used anywhere else. So I can write private vector to move vector. However, we want to do the opposite. We want any class to be able to change can control player. So instead, we'll use the public access modifier. Now we can change this variable from crash detector, and VS Code isn't going to complain. Make sure to save your script after doing this so the changes can be applied. Now in crash detector, I'm going to grab can control player, and you'll notice it has an autocomplete now, and I'll set it to false. So long story short, we can't use any of the variables or methods outside of a class unless you explicitly change the access modifier. So you might be thinking, why not just make everything public? And that is a really bad idea, because it's going to make it so easy to make mistakes, especially when you're working with a team of programmers. For example, I don't want anyone to change the player's speed from other scripts. That would be very confusing and is going to make our code very messy. Anyway, I'm going to remove these private access modifiers since I was just using these as an example. One last thing I need to mention is that it's usually bad practice to make variables public.
And then you won't have that problem.
Yes, that's a great solution. You're right. Just yeah.
We're going to do a public method to change this variable, just using these as an example. One last thing I need to mention is that it's usually bad practice to make variables public. We're going to do a public method to change this variable, and we'll keep this variable private for now. The reason it's good is that it's usually...
It only takes one person to make an Elden Ring.
Bad practice to make variables public. We're going to do a public method to change this variable, and we'll keep this variable private for now.
Oh yeah. We shouldn't talk about like getters and setters right now, probably.
The reason it's good practice to keep your variables private and only change them through methods is so that we can add some extra code whenever we need to. We'll talk more about it in the future, but let's go at the bottom of the script and create a new method called disable controls. And inside of this new method, I'm simply going to grab can control player and set it to false. Since I want the crash detector script to be able...
Oh, yeah, I forgot about how I'm supposed to. I forgot about naming conventions. Oops. Capital.
to use this method, I'm going to make it public. Let's go. I'm simply going to grab can control player and set it to false. Since I want the crash detector script to be able to use this method, I'm going to make it public. Let's go back to our crash detector, and I'm going to remove this line and replace it with disable controls. Let's save both of these scripts and head back to Unity in order to try our game. If I lightly tap my head on the floor, then I can't control my player and I completely crash. Now it actually feels like I lost the game rather than tapped my head on the floor, which is perfect. So that is going to be it for this lecture. We learned how to use axis modifiers in order to stop our player from being able to move after crashing. Excellent work in this lecture, and I'll see you in the next video.
Okay, cool. No, okay, now since I'm basically done with all the coding stuff, I can just there was a video I was watching last night on YouTube. I could finish watching that just for fun. Yeah, and then I'm going to bed. Or gonna go down and try to sleep or something. It was about Dracon. Well, honestly, wait. At first, I should just make sure that just in case something went wrong, I should play the game and make sure it's like working as intended. Probably. I don't think I reloaded the domain. Or did I? Because if I did, then it's like not working. Or maybe, oh, maybe it is. Maybe it's just like the momentum. No, yeah, it's working. I can't control it anymore. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Okay. Cool. Save. Close. What was that? Right, I'm not sure what the that parallelogram box is. I need to look at a key real quick. Choice. Oh yeah. Go. Yeah.
Legion 18 CSS. What the hell kinda music is that for a tutorial video? Insättningstecken.
Yeah,
Legion 18 CSS.
it's
Saltet på angry anime.
fighting the battles programming music. What's weird about that? It's all very normal. I guess it's the kind of music they like in Russia when it comes to programming tutorials, you know? And it even says the BPM because it's important, apparently. He says, because I want to learn it and I find slideshows boring, but music interesting and synchronized music and video even more interesting. This person is definitely not autistic. It works. It's keeping me entertained. So I like to use the shaky shaky emote.
Legion 18 CSS. Fair I guess. Saltet
Yeah.
says. Dino dance.
I mean, I'm vibing to this. Chiefs. Is the letter insulting? Yes, and wow. Oh, you ignore it. I get it. Okay, so that one's input, that one's output. I get it. The input has the divot, and the output fits into the input. Cute. What do those icons look like? Oh, one of them's boxes, I see. Door. Oh, whatever. Progress. Does that mean block until any event?
Ruins it says, what in TF is going on here?
I'm watching a tutorial about Dracon, which is a visual programming language. It's not even like a real thing that you type code in. It's a thing you use to make diagrams of algorithms to either, like, if you're working on a project and you just simplify things, like not necessarily simplify, but like being able to show other developers what your algorithm does without them having to like read the code,
Ruins it says, like
which is
a
great.
flowchart.
Yeah, it's like a specialized set of rules for a flowchart with special symbols and special like rules of like where arrows and stuff can and can't go, specifically for programming. Here's some examples of some like the larger types of like flows. Sweet. But yeah, it's called Dracon. It was invented by the USSR as well, which is funny. And it's an acronym that stands for Friendly Russian
Ruins
Algorithmic
it says,
Language,
we see.
which provides clarity. It's adorable. But there's a lot of like free open source editors that let you make these charts. Here's an example of like this is what quicksort would look like with this flow. But yeah, I figured this is something that could help me plan better when making a program, because often I'm like confused and I just kind of like I wing it, and do it line by line, and everything just breaks eventually. But if I can come up with um, structure that actually makes sense, then I can maybe do a better job writing code, and then I can also make it communicate better with people um, about like my algorithms and stuff, so that they can help me even if they don't know C sharp, and maybe it'll help me spot bugs and stuff. So yeah. Oh yeah, just another algorithm. And apparently, being visual like this about. Oh wait, are you in an ad? I'm not sure. That was cool. Honestly, the most difficult part was understanding the part about parallel processes and inputs and outputs. That was kind of confusing. Oh, okay, that was interesting. Anyway, I'm gonna head off now. See you guys. Bye.